Disaster struck. My audio interface died. Let's talk about it. That's right. Last week, my main audio interface died. It is a Focusrite Saffire Pro 40. I got this thing used about 8 years ago, and I've pretty much had it turned on, powered up 24/7, and I've recorded almost every YouTube video on this channel and 10 albums with this thing. What a workhorse it's been, but last week, came downstairs to the studio to shoot a video, and the rest of the rack was powered up, but not my old Pro 40. It was dead. So, took it out, did a little investigation, and sure enough, got a fried circuit board underneath this plastic. So because of that, I had to run out and make an emergency purchase and get a new audio interface. In the course of doing so, it did cause me to sit down and think about what are some important factors for buying an audio interface. After budget, of course, number one, I think, is quality. What is the overall quality of the unit that you've purchased? And just as importantly, what is the driver support like from the company that you're purchasing the audio interface from? Let me share a quick experience that I had with Mackie. And the end of the story is I will never, ever buy a piece of Mackie gear again. So I purchased an Onyx audio interface probably back 12 years ago, 13 years ago. It sounded great. The mic pre's were really nice for the budget. Nice set of features and functionality. It was really great. And I got some good recordings out of it. But along the way, what I found out was, one, Mackie stinks at driver support. This was during the transition from Windows XP to Windows 7, and it took them, something like 2 years to come out with a driver for Windows 7. Meanwhile, I was stuck on Windows XP and couldn't upgrade my computer to Windows 7. And then secondly, it really only lasted about 2.5 to 3 years, and then destroyed. So think about the quality of the unit you're buying. Do some research, read some reviews, hopefully unbiased reviews, and make sure you're getting a good quality unit. The second is plan for more inputs than you think you're going to need. So when I got that Mackie, I thought that was a nice upgrade, and that had 4 mic preamps. Sweet, here I am, a solo guitarist with 4 channels to work with. Man, I can do stereo guitar, I can plug in some extra pedals or, whatever. But I found out a couple things. One is a friend of mine said, "Hey, can I come over and record with you?" And wouldn't you know it, we immediately ran out of channels once he brought his gear in. I also ran into some issues one time when another friend said, "Hey, can you record my band?" Well, I wanted to, but I couldn't because I only had 4 channels. And I know a lot of guys that start off by buying a 1-channel audio interface, thinking, I'll just plug my guitar in, or maybe at most 2 channels. I'll do stereo. But you really want to think about, how am I going to use this audio interface? Think about it a little bit down the line, and it will probably benefit you to buy more channels than you think you're going to need. Number 3 is somewhat related, and that is the overall set of inputs and outputs. One of the things I really liked about my good old Focusrite here is that in addition to the mic preamps on the back, it also has MIDI in and MIDI out, which is great. So I don't need a separate MIDI card or device to plug in stuff. It's got 2 different types of optical inputs, which is great. And it's, it's very flexible. It's got a lot of line outputs, so you can actually patch in external gear. So Focusrite, this is not alone. There are many other brands that have this type of inputs and outputs. I would just say, sit down and think about what are my needs? Am I going to need to plug in a MIDI keyboard? Do I have a device with an optical or digital input and output that I might want to plug into my audio interface and kind of bypass the analog circuit? Really pretty important to think about. Number 4, in this day and age, I don't think you really need to sweat over the digital to analog conversion too much. Now, let me qualify that for those of you who are high-end equipment owners and maybe work in a professional studio. I'm not saying that digital analog converters aren't important. What I am saying, though, is certainly for amateur recording musicians and even musicians like me who are shooting mostly YouTube videos and such, the quality of digital analog conversion has improved so much over the last 10 years that even lower end audio interfaces really have quite good digital to analog conversion. So keep it in mind, but don't stress over it. And number 5, have a backup plan for failure in case the worst happens. You know, I'm really kind of surprised at me. Some of you know, my day job is in IT consulting, and I'm always thinking about risk management of software configuration and computer hardware, server farms, all that stuff. So backups, redundant backups, etc., all that good stuff is constantly on my mind. As a matter of fact, I just bought a 32 terabyte RAID 5 backup device for my YouTube video library, just to make sure I don't lose anything. But I never thought about having a backup for my audio interface. And this, I really do need this interface to effectively make videos here in the studio. I need 2 inputs for whatever guitar amp modeler or the 11 rack that I'm using, at least 1 mic input. In some cases, I'll use other inputs to and from my reel-to-reel tape deck or other analog gear. I use it quite heavily. My only other interface was a Focusrite Scarlett 2i4, which is really great for mobile recording, but it's only 2 inputs. And that isn't enough for what I do. So I would suggest to you, think about your needs and how long you can survive without your audio interface should it break down. I realize for most people, it's probably not too big of a deal to go for a week or maybe even 2 weeks without an audio interface. But for me, it was a disaster. I went down to shoot a YouTube video and I couldn't do it because my audio interface was dead. It's been really rough over the last 4 or 5 days to get in the new interface, get it set up, and start recording YouTube videos and working on some other audio recording without falling behind in my schedule. I should have had a backup. Well, guess what I'm going to be doing here in the next couple months? Yep, I'm going to be getting a backup. So I think the real lesson for me is think about needs. Think about the future a little bit, maybe not 10 years down the road, but think about a little bit down the road and maybe some expansion. And think about what would happen when, not if, but when your equipment dies and how that will affect your music making activities. Since we're on the topic of recording, I've got a playlist here for you, all about recording ambient guitar. Please check it out, subscribe, and I'll see all of you on the next video.